Donald Trump seems to have realized is that he's not going to get a sustainable peace deal from the Russians. And then what you do, you've just been wasting your time if that is how Russia is behaving. And so it's not going to be an enjoyable awakening for him and his team when they realize that this foot dragging is a Russian strategy.
Now, a Russian minister has said his country cannot accept President Trump's peace plan for Ukraine while President Zelensky is in power in Kyiv. The comments from the Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov suggest that there is still a huge gap between Moscow and Washington, with the Kremlin saying that the current proposals do not address the problems which it regards as having caused the conflict. And it comes as President Putin has announced the call-up of 160,000 men aged between 18 and 30, which is the biggest mass conscription since 2011. Let's talk to Elisabeth Braw, a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Scowcroft Centre for Strategy and Security. Good evening to you, Elisabeth.
Good evening.
What do you make of these signals that we're getting from Russia that it's simply not prepared to accept the proposals that, as we understand it, are currently on the table?
Well, it was bound to happen. What we have is, on one hand, President Trump, who's very keen to strike a quick deal and get the credit for bringing peace to Ukraine. And on the other hand, we have President Putin, who is not interested in peace in Ukraine, but what he's interested in is essentially dragging negotiations out. So it looks like he is involved in and in good faith involved in peace negotiations in Ukraine, and the two cannot be true at the same time. And what we've seen over the past few weeks is some essentially a little bit of a game where both sides pretend to be playing along with the other side, and Ukraine, of course, having to accept whatever the two other countries do. But the two cannot be true at the same time. You cannot have peace and war at the same time.
Russia has already refused to sign up to the idea of an unconditional 30-day ceasefire. It's been talking about this partial ceasefire, perhaps on energy infrastructure, perhaps in the Black Sea. And when you have a leader announcing this huge programme of conscription, that doesn't sound like a country that's preparing for peace.
It doesn't, and we should remember that Russia is a country that's has already called up a lot of men, as you mentioned in the introduction, and has already gone through all kinds of trouble to get other men to serve voluntarily as paid soldiers, and not just any men, but people serving criminal sentences or serving sentences for criminal for severe crimes. So we already have all kinds of people serving in this war, and the Russian government is essentially getting anybody it can to the front, and to then have this call up doesn't suggest that it's negotiating in good faith.
How do you think these latest signals from Russia are going to go down at the White House? We've already had President Trump, for the first time really, expressing some exasperation with President Putin, saying that he was let's say diplomatically hacked off with President Putin over his approach to all of this. And President Trump, as you said, has clearly been hoping to try to get a quick deal to end the fighting in Ukraine. He wants to be the one who brings that war to an end. It's something that he talked about during his election campaign. How do you think he'll respond to these latest signals from some of the senior figures in the Kremlin?
Well, he's not going to like it, and Russia has been playing this game very well of pretending to go along with these peace negotiations, while in fact having very little interest in achieving lasting peace in Ukraine.
We seem to have lost Elisabeth Braw there. I don't know if you can still hear us, Elisabeth. I think we have lost the line to Elisabeth. We will just try and re-establish that line to Elisabeth to finish the point that she was making. In the meantime, just to let you know that we've got her back. Elisabeth, we seem to have lost the line to you. I was just asking you how you thought that President Trump would respond to these latest signals from senior figures in the Kremlin.
Well, I think what we saw a couple of days ago was that the penny had dropped in the White House, that Russia is not negotiating in good faith and not participating in these talks in good faith. When it comes to establishing or reaching peace in Ukraine, it's participating in these peace talks because it's what Russia needs to do in order to please Donald Trump. But what Donald Trump seems to have realized is that he's not going to get a sustainable peace deal from the Russians. And then what you do, you've just been wasting your time if that is how Russia is behaving. And so it's not going to be an enjoyable awakening for him and his team when they realize that this foot dragging is a Russian strategy.
Elisabeth Braw, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Really good to speak to you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you who've been getting in touch, talking about the prospect of Donald Trump's tariffs. Gareth says Trump seems to be turning his economic strategy just like China did in the 1980s. Sell everything for cheap as chips. Wages will become suppressed. Inflation won't be contained. Industry will not be attracted to the US if he keeps this mindset up. Still, of course, a great deal unclear about exactly what tariffs will be imposed. We'll get them tomorrow early evening, and of course we'll have plenty of coverage of that here on Times Radio.
The Kremlin said on Monday Vladimir Putin remained open to contacts with US President Donald Trump, after Trump said on Sunday he was pissed off with the Russian president. Trump threatened to impose secondary tariffs of 25% to 50% on buyers of Russian oil if he felt Moscow was blocking his efforts to end the war in Ukraine. He told NBC News he was angry after Putin last week criticised the credibility of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's leadership. Trump has adopted a more conciliatory stance towards Russia that has worried Western allies, as he tries to end what he calls a ridiculous war, which began when Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. He himself has called for new elections in Ukraine and denounced Zelensky as a dictator. Trump criticised him again on Sunday over a critical minerals deal that US officials have been pushing Kyiv to accept. A summary of the draft suggests the US is demanding all Ukraine's natural resources income for years. Zelensky has said Kyiv's lawyers need to review it.
And I think Zelensky, by the way, as he's trying to back out of the rare earth deal. And if he does that, he's got some problems, big problems. We made a deal on rare earth. And now he's saying, well, I want to renegotiate the deal. He wants to be a member of NATO. Well, he was never going to be a member of NATO. He understands that.
Asked about Trump's anger with Putin, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Moscow continued to work with Washington, and a call between Trump and Putin could be set up at short notice if necessary. Trump had later repeated that he was disappointed with Putin, but added, "I think we are making progress step by step." He said he could impose new trade measures on Russia within a month. Russia has called numerous Western sanctions and restrictions illegal and designed for the West to seize economic advantage in its rivalry with Russia.